Welcome to the live meetup with Brex and Tax Taker. We're going to be talking about when and why you should outsource your accounting operations. I'm Austin Legler, the manager of sales and partnerships at Tax Taker, and appreciate you lending us part of your afternoon. If there's anybody that joins or wants to add any questions, feel free to do so in the chat. We'll collect those throughout, and we'll answer those at the end if we have time. We're also going to be recording this session and sharing the recording link. So if there's anybody that wasn't able to attend that you think might get some value out of it, you can share it with them. So to introduce our speakers, we have Kurt Rathman. On top of being a VP at Brex, one of the youngest unicorns in history, Kurt is a CPA, serial entrepreneur, cloud accounting pioneer, small business advisor, and technology futurist. He's a busy guy. And in 2014, Kurt created a vision for a technology company that would provide a centralized cloud-based accounting platform for small businesses. And this became known as Scale Factor, which rapidly attracted investment and grew to a team of more than 200 employees, as well as thousands of customers. And post Scale Factor, Kurt joined the Brex team, where he is now. And then we have Ari Salafia. Ari is the CEO and co-founder of Tax Taker. Tax Taker helps startups and innovative companies apply for R&D tax credits, which is the government's #1 non-dilutive source of funding for U.S. companies. And over the course of her career, Ari has helped hundreds of companies save tens of millions of dollars on taxes through R&D tax credits. And with that, I will kick it over to Ari, who will pose the first question.
Thanks so much, Austin. And I have to say, I think I need to work on some of my cool hashtags or something because Kurt, I already know Kurt. I've known Kurt before this. I know he's a badass, but cloud futurist, pioneer, this is I feel like I'm all right, we got to bow down now because these are some strong descriptors. Love it so much. So it's great to be here with you, Kurt.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. So we're both in Austin. So we've had teams collaborate before. So really, really excited about the opportunity and alignment between Brex and Tax Taker. We know that our customers love Brex, and everything that you guys have going on is unbelievable. So it's so fun to kind of watch y'all grow. And I think you had just mentioned you're already up to 900 people, which is it's amazing, unbelievable. So. Well, it's believable because you guys are just a bunch of badasses. But, typically when we talk about accounting, you've been a CPA for a good amount of time, right? It gets kind of a bad rap because it's just not the most exciting topic.
We'll try to make it fun today. Maybe a little flair
to the group. Yeah, this is going to live on. We're going to share this with the world. And we know that small business owners don't typically get super excited hearing about accounting or talking about accounting, but we're going to keep it cool. We're going to make it fun. But yeah, the fact of the matter is, folks usually they want to be talking about their exciting products and services rather than maybe their debits and credits, right? But unless you're us, where we get excited about these things, but it's important, right? It's a fundamental pillar of your business as you're growing your company. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what is outsourced accounting, why it's important, when you should be looking at it. And then because we've got some experience working with a lot of startups and small businesses, we can kind of paint a picture with some examples. So really kind of first off, it's really interesting to me when I'm talking with a startup company that, even has raised money, not even small change, or even $1 million. And they're like, should I set up a QuickBooks account? And you're like, what? Right? So a lot of business owners, they kind of confuse bookkeeping and accounting and when they should be in our payroll and all this. And even they might think outsourcing means offshoring. So I kind of just wanted to just start out with maybe we can kind of define what outsourced accounting is. And really, I know it's subjective to kind of industry and things like that, but when we think you should be, looking at outsourcing your accounting?
Yeah, definitely. Great place to start. The way I think about this is you really need to have something in place. And so I think you get in trouble when you kind of think like, I'll deal with that later, maybe towards the end of the year, maybe around tax time, and you're kind of, you'll day by day kind of run your business without really any solution in place. I think that's a bad spot to be. And so the thing I always stress is just having some solution in place. And when we talk about outsourcing in the accounting world, it's much more really literal than that, than maybe kind of overseas and so forth. That could be that way, but it's much more of like, is somebody working for you in-house in this virtual world, maybe on your payroll is maybe the one way to say it, your W-2 payroll, or are you contracting with somebody? Maybe it's an individual or a firm, or using a service or a software to achieve kind of the goals of having kind of a custodianship of your financial world. Meaning, are you tracking it? Are you analyzing it? Are you adjusting what you're doing day to day or month to month, or maybe quarter to quarter, whatever it might be, whatever time frame makes sense? Are you really going through that cycle? Versus, and I know we've all been there, and we could probably all relate to this in some points in our lives, in our personal lives, just kind of like gut feel, hoping. Maybe you look at the bank account and you're like, it's going up, and so life is good. It's not negative today, those types of things. And it's just really hard to kind of have confidence in a lot of moves that you need to do in a business owner's life, without a viewpoint of what's going on. So, when I think about outsourcing and insourcing, it's the first step is like, just have something. I think as we think about like, what's better, it's all really relative. And Ari, you and I were kind of discussing this at some point as well. I mean, it's very case by case. And what I mean by that, it's you could have an outsourced accountant to solve a specific need. Maybe you are trying to raise funds and you need more of like a CFO to help you through that and kind of understand the story of your business and where you need to be and how you kind of articulate that. Or maybe you have like a tax issue or some tax planning you want to do, and you want your outsourced kind of accounting world to be very heavy in the tax world. And we could go kind of around and define all these different things that you might need. But the thing I always say is it could make sense to outsource when you have a specialized need and you kind of go find that person or that business.
Totally. And then especially when we kind of look at the landscape of kind of the startups and SMBs, most companies, they don't need, right, a CFO or a controller at potentially, $100,000 kind of rate and up plus benefit. So that can be kind of quick math. Like, is that something that I need right now? Like, and can I afford? If not, which is likely, then gonna have to go to some type of specialist. And now there's great kind of cloud accountants out there to help with the day-to-days. Also, one kind of sometimes kind of obvious kind of check is, am I spending a lot of time doing this? And it's taking me away of kind of my zone of genius, right? Because sometimes it's hard for business owners to relinquish kind of certain controls, but they also are like, I don't want to do this, right? They know that they shouldn't be doing this. So I think those are kind of two quick gut checks, as well as I probably should tap someone for this.
So I really agree with that last point. The thing I always say is, if you have like a 10-item to-do list and somehow the bookkeeping or the back office stuff kind of always ends up being number 11, that thing that's that lingering item, that's something to kind of take notice of, because not only maybe there's somebody else out there that could be faster at it and maybe more skilled, but they also like doing it. And if you don't, like, that's actually a great reason to outsource, right? Like, being a business owner, you kind of get to choose what you want to do to some extent, right? And you kind of focus on the areas that you either have a lot of passion about, or maybe you're the best to do them in your company. And a lot of times I would say that's probably not the bookkeeping, unless you're focused on, being a bookkeeping specific kind of company, right? But most companies, it's not the bookkeeping. And so it really does take away from that high value time. And I couldn't agree more with that one.
Yeah. And, particularly for companies that are raising money, right? You never want your financials to be a reason for another reason for a no, right? Like I've gotten a lot of feedback from kind of investors, just the folks that we've partnered with and our clients, investors, that like it's amazing how you can show up if you just have kind of clean books. And so if you're raising money, someone might be more impressed by you just by being able to hand over, their financials, because if those are sloppy, what else is sloppy? And you could have everything perfect in your business, but they're numbers people, right? So they're going to want to see that there's some level of thought and attention to them. And so if that's not your forte, find someone that can help.
Totally. And that's a good thing to bring up as well. I mean, it's kind of like table stakes, right? Like if you're going to go and take some investor's money, whether it be kind of friends or family or institutional investor and so forth, like you have to maintain a really good set of records to account for what you do with that money. It's just expected. And I think that, you need to have that attitude. It's kind of like the least you could do to some extent. If someone's going to, write a check and invest in your dream or what you're working on, it's kind of the least you can do. It's good hygiene. It's like taking off your shoes when you come into someone's house. I mean, it kind of fits in that category of things. And so at that point, if you're taking investor money, I'd say there is no option to not have this taken care of. And that's, just the responsibility that you have to take on, going that route of being a business owner.
I love that. Yeah. Take off your shoes in someone's house and have some nice investor ready books for the VCs that are pouring money into your passion. That's awesome. So, we have both met companies that are super early stage through growth stage, but when they're really looking for outsourcing their accounting, right? Like we've met them when they're trying to hire someone. So you've got the most amount of experience in this space. So like, what are some important qualities to be looking for when a business is hiring an accounting professional? So let's maybe take tax out.
Yeah.
Accounting out, but just kind of maybe your general like bookkeeping, accounting, day-to-day books. So, and maybe, helping with forecasting and those things, like true budgeting and accounting.
Yeah. So I always say, kind of similar to how we opened, the thing about outsourced, accountants and so forth, there's we talk internally here at Brex, there's hundreds of thousands of different possibilities of how you could do this. And that's just here in the US. And so the thing I always stress is kind of like, go find somebody that specializes in what you're doing as a business. Because one of the things that you get out of outsourcing this part of your business is also just the inherent learnings from somebody that sees lots of businesses that are similar to yours. And so that might mean maybe if you're an e-commerce business, maybe you go find an e-commerce specific, outsourced accounting firm or outsourced accountant that specializes in that. If you're, dealing with, different types of kind of overseas transactions, for example, we're now in the Zoom world, we're more and more international. We see that more and more from our founders and customers here at Brex. That could be a kind of a specialty. And so I think the specialization of who you're looking for is really, really important. The second thing I would say is, so I kind of view it as a competition. And I don't know if many people put it out there like that. And so maybe it's a little bit, a different framing of this, but you're competing with that outsourced accountant's book of business. And you simply want to be the best client you can possibly be. And so one of the things I stress when you're looking for somebody is try to find out like how they're really going to work. Like get down to like the tactical part of it. Like, okay, so on Tuesdays, are we paying bills? On Wednesdays, we're running payroll. Fridays, you want all this other stuff. And be honest with yourself. If you're not good at that, rhythm, stretch it out a bit. Like, don't try to sign up for these overly ambitious schedules, because you really need to sync with this person on how this is going to work. And if you can stay in schedule with them of how you've defined that from the, the very beginning and the get-go of it, then you're likely going to be that great client. And if you're are that great client, you're going to get better service, faster response times, and kind of all those things. And so I go back to, you just want to be the best, because at the end of the day, it's human nature. And if you're that kind of troublesome, client that never gets things back on time, we're laughing. I see you kind of smiling, right? Like,
we're 15th and I'm still seeing credits go out, right? So I know people are last minute, like humans are lazy. I get it.
Exactly. And so if you can kind of curb that, or at least set the expectations that you are going to be that way, it can go a long, long ways. I think that things get kind of out of alignment rather, when there's just varying expectations. And so it's just totally an expectation setting game. And I think you'll kind of know, like, interview a couple different outsourced accounting firms or outsourced accounting pros, and like, they'll either be very rigid on their timetable, or they will articulate it a different way. I think that's just something that's overlooked quite a bit, is exactly how you're going to work together.
Definitely. And I think it's less important. Well, you want your outsourced professionals to be using kind of the standard tools, and you want them to you want to ask the questions around, like, how is my data being managed? Is that transferable? You want access to the accounts, right? You don't want to get into a situation where all of a sudden you can't get to your information, right? But I think that it's probably less important in interviewing these folks to say, are you just super Xero focused or QuickBooks focused, or what kind of FP&A forecasting do you use software? Are you using Draft or something like that? But more so around your company and industry, because we meet CPAs all the time that have gone all in on a niche. You mentioned e-com. I know that, like, there's CPAs for the cannabis industry, government contractors, right? DoD folks that are getting grants. So they're out there, and thank goodness for it being 2021, right? So they're like not that hard to find, in my opinion. Now there's really something for everyone. It's
just a Zoom or Google call away. I mean, and you can find anybody in, the geographic kind of restrictions that we were all living under. And I think accounting was kind of maybe, was more of the laggard. People liked going and seeing their accountant in person. And over the last 18, 24 months, like, now you don't need to do that anymore. And so you could have somebody in a totally different city, absolutely fine.
Yeah. That was like a fast awakening, right? Because years ago, I mean, it was not long ago, like just 1-2 years ago, I remember clients being like, oh, but I really want someone local. I'm like, oh, well, just curious, how many times do you see your CPA? Like, maybe, and they're like, well, maybe once a year, but it's just nice to know they're there. So now I'm so glad folks realize we can be here even easier.
Totally.
So I kind of think about kind of the trajectory of a company and kind of how they're growing and leveraging kind of their industry and maybe where their traction is of a business. I don't want to get too controversial here, but like, call any firms out or anything like that. But like, I've seen some red flags kind of in the industry before. Do you have any kind of red flags that you'd kind of tell a founder, hey, when you're interviewing, these folks, this is maybe what to look out for? Have you seen anything go like awry between a professional and a founder?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, similar to any business relationship, whether it be an employee or a contractor in a business, there's those things that can, go awry, so to speak, with, misaligned expectations is probably one of the best and easiest ways to say it. And so, I think that is kind of a global statement. I mean, these are people too, these are solutions too. A lot of them are newer, right? And so, like, if you're going to go with a newer solution, it is newer, it's more unproven, and it's more, I'm very much a proponent of moving the industry forward and pushing the envelope of what's possible in the space. But you kind of have to sign up for what risk tolerance you want, right? And where you want to be in that. But all that aside, I think it really goes awry in the, kind of two areas. Number one is this back and forth relationship that we've talked about already here. And like, that's how I call it the death spiral, right? It totally, we see a lot of accounting relationships where essentially the business owner ignores the accountant until they need something.
Yes.
And then when they need something, it's like a 5-alarm fire. They are the most unpleasant people to deal with. They a lot of times don't even have the awareness of how they got here. And then it's like this fire drill, right? And like, you can do that maybe, we all have things that come up in our business life that are unexpected. And so it's great to have a partner that is willing to kind of drop everything and get you what you need. But you can't make that the operating style, right? Like, no one's going to go for that over time. So like, that leads to really bad outcomes. It leads to kind of a tumultuous relationship, very contentious at points in time. And it's weird because then it's this thing, it's like, you have this person in your books and you don't know what's what, and you don't know what's up and down. And you just like, the entrepreneur can spiral. And I say this, and I can say it because I am one, in the best way, but all entrepreneurs are a little bit crazy. And so, it goes down to, you need to capture that in some way where it's not a negative for those folks that you're working with. So that's one, it's just this back and forth kind of relationship. The other is really kind of getting to know how many other clients a single point of contact at an accounting firm will also have. And so kind of their book of business and kind of understanding, what does that look like? How do they think about it? I would ask that question a ton when you're interviewing these folks. And I wouldn't let the number necessarily scare somebody away. Like, higher doesn't necessarily mean worse. It's more of reading into how they answer that question. Sometimes they can have a large team supporting them. Sometimes they're a one-person show, and you kind of just get a feeling for, are they overloaded? And I think that gut feeling is one to really kind of listen to. Because if they're overloaded today and they're just trying to kind of add to the top line, it could mean a negative outcome down the line. So it's much more, it's very much how like a lawyer relationship would go awry, or maybe how a marketing agency would go awry. It's very much in the similar vein. It's just a little bit more emotional because it deals with money.
Yes.
And that's where like there can be some heightened responses on either part.
Right. That's where some of the tension falls in. Yeah. Around the money for sure. But no, I think those are such excellent points, because I kind of was hesitant to even say red flags, because I think it really always just kind of usually stems from, it's not like, the chances of you having an evil accountant, right, are very, very slim, right?
They won't be an accountant for long if that's the case.
Yeah. Yes, they won't be one for long, but it's mostly about managing expectations and what is your communication style? How would you want to look at things? So setting that precedent at the beginning. Am I going to be able to contact you directly, or who is it on your team that you work with? Or is it that I have to issue a support kind of style ticket or form? Just knowing what's there and available to you, I think is super helpful. And I do love that about the numbers too, because I know folks that would much prefer to be like, oh, I want to work with someone that works with 12 people versus 1,000, just because they probably are going to answer my call. But definitely have been there. I was laughing earlier because it's just like, without fail, you know who you are. I've been that way to vendors before too. And I think about the golden rule all the time, because I'm like, I want to treat my customers like I want to be treated. And I should be doing that also for the vendor relationships that we have. Because I know what it feels like to just, yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think that goes a long way is like, just don't ghost somebody.
Just don't ghost someone. Hey, Halloween time. This is perfect. Don't.
Yeah. And so like, to contrast that with like, what's totally acceptable is someone's asking you, the accountant is asking the business owner for something. The business owner is totally underwater or traveling or fundraising or whatever it might be, and maybe they just don't respond. That's different than just responding saying like, hey, I'm underwater. I'll try to get back to this or back to you in a couple weeks. Like even that is it may not be the anticipated response or the best response that the accountant wanted, but now they can adjust their workload and they can adjust how they manage everything else. And it goes a long way in keeping kind of the whole harmony of everything running.
Yeah. Love it. Don't ghost and just have a pulse, like just a little pulse. It will go a long way.
Totally.
But then, okay, let's say we have a great cadence with where kind of our outsourced accounting firm. What are some of the ways, I think, we don't typically think of accounting as a proactive kind of pillar of our business. We always just kind of think of it as, reconciling books or kind of a past action that we just have to do. Okay, this happened. We have to log this. We have to track this. But a lot of folks don't think of it, and which unfortunately means they miss out on all the benefits of proactive accounting, and the ways that can actually help grow and scale your business and your team. So, would love to hear from you. What might be a couple of ways some founders could actually leverage their financial team to help scale their business by outsourcing?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up because it really speaks to, I think, this big like meta pain point in this industry, right? And I've been solving this for years of how do you speed up the feedback cycle back to the business owner and take this lag time out? Because typically, in like a best case scenario, if you have either an internal or external accountant and you're not a publicly traded company and all those things, but you're maybe more starting out, you're lucky to get your books 30 to 45 days after that month end, maybe 15 if you're on a really, really good cadence with somebody. And so that means if you think about it, like a lot of the world is actually looking at 45, 60-day-old information to make business decisions. And, on that lag, it takes a while to figure out something's not going right or something's working or so forth. And especially if you're a venture-backed business, you don't have that amount of time. Like you need to cut the experiments that aren't working very early on so they don't, they don't spend money that you don't want to spend on that. And then the opposite's true for something you want to really invest in. And so I think, a quick answer to your question is like, that is the place to be. Like, have you not tried that type thing? That's a response I have to a lot of folks, right? It's the financial world should be proactive, and that should be your North Star. Like, you should not really think you're in success if it's a reactive solution. And I challenge everybody to push their teams, to push yourself. If you can have the cadences and rhythms to review the financials and then make management decisions to change something on very, very deliberate timeframes, you'll be amazed what it does for your business, and more so for your teams to also get on that cadence. Kind of think like, how hard is it for like your COO or your, head of marketing or whomever it might be to adjust what they're doing if they don't have this very deliberate, like they know on the 15th of the month, they get reports and they can make decisions a week later and so forth. If that's changing all the time, they're never going to be able to build any infrastructure themselves. And so, yeah, I would say like that is success. The only reason it wouldn't be, and my little caveat here is sometimes when you're just starting out, you don't necessarily need the financial part of the business to drive what you're doing. You just need to be successful out of the gate, right? So this is like very 0 to 1 stage. Maybe you need to launch your product, and that's just going to take a certain amount of investment, and you're just going to allocate it to that. Or maybe you're going to launch your restaurant, and you just need to do the build out, and primarily how much that's going to take. And so it's more of a project based spend to get to a point, and then the business starts. And so if you're in that project based world, kind of like nothing else matters, you need to have something in place going back to the beginning. So I don't want to say nothing matters, but you need to be successful, because without being successful in what your endeavor, you're not going to have any need to do anything after that if you don't achieve that. So that 0 to 1 stage is very, very important. I think it's like very important just to hone in on like the number 1 or 2 things you're going to get right, and then expand from there.
Right. Yeah. At the beginning, knowing, how much runway and time you have to kind of iterate and find product market fit or start generating revenue. And then once you do, then actually taking that information and using it to kind of your future advantage. But yeah, it's a real problem, right? It's kind of alarming that most of us live up to 2 months behind, but most businesses only have maybe 3 months cash on hand. So if something's not working, you could have just a month or so to figure it out. Like that can be kind of scary.
Very scary. Yeah. And so that's the operational side. I think the other thing to kind of call out here is like, tax taker would be a great example of this, right? Having somebody that's specialized in a way to really take advantage of some great R&D credits that are out there for US businesses. If you don't know about that, you need a professional that does, right? And so that's another area where some very strategic decisions of who you hire and when can save you a lot of money and yield to your success as well.
Love that plug, Kurt. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's what we're trying to tell everyone and build that megaphone, right? You don't know what you don't know, but there's so many different resources out there that can help boost your bottom line and extend your runway. Just to give y'all a compliment back, because I was going to say anyway, right? When you find a trusted resource, whether that be through your banking relationship or your accounting relationship or legal, maybe, I think we're at such a unique time too, where they have so many customers that have probably gone through what you're going through or are alike, especially if you're choosing someone, specialized. So you're really opening yourself up to an opportunity where maybe you're going to get recommendations that you wouldn't have gotten before, or you're going to see that they have certain partner perks and things that all of a sudden you're like, wow, I didn't know that existed. Right. And how would you, because you're laser focused on your baby. Right. So it's pretty neat to see how that can like kind of trickle across all different areas. We get asked a lot about our customers, how they fared during the pandemic, and most of our clients are VC backed, so they had some healthy amount of runway to kind of wait out the storm, if you will. But I'll say that I think by nature that they were working with a firm like ours to be proactive about one tax area of their business, that really is a signal that they're likely doing that across other areas of their business as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And it also goes to show, I hope that we don't have anything of the magnitude of COVID happen, in the near future. But, maybe I think we all learned something around why it's important to have your books ready and to be up to speed and kind of be very ingrained in the ecosystem for disaster times. And again, we don't know what the future holds, but it was very, very apparent of folks that had everything together and were able to take advantage of a lot of different, whether it be subsidies or incentives or whatever it might be, versus those that then had to go even get to that point. And when there's only so much out there being given out or being, that you can take advantage of, like, speed counts. And it was a very hectic time, I think, for this entire industry just 18 months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I know we're kind of coming up on time. These conversations, they just go so quickly. And this has been fun. Really wanted to just say, like, what would be some of your kind of key takeaways? I mean, we've got Google, right? Like every founder can just be like, all right, I've got e-com, or I'm a cannabis business, or I'm a pet DNA company. Find my accountant. But what would be, what's the best way for someone, in your opinion, just to start? would you say just, I would say, maybe I'll go first. I would say be super specific, right? What are the things that you do that you like to do or that you don't do? And really put a time kind of stamp to that. How much time am I actually spending? Or maybe to your point earlier, not spending. It's something that keeps getting just kind of quarterback down the line. And then really kind of have a conversation first with yourself and then to prepare for interviewing someone.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with everything you just laid out. The thing I would add to it maybe is just this idea of like it's your responsibility as a business owner. Yeah. You're also responsible for paying those that work for you, and like it's similar, like severity, and maybe is one way to describe it. And so the thing I always say is like, if you're not good at that, or you're not going to take it seriously, you have to find somebody in your business that is. And that could be like your co-founder, or you hire somebody that's going to take you, but you have to solve that as the CEO, as the founder, as the owner. You have to cover this base somehow. Having seen thousands and thousands of businesses just in my career, there's absolutely a correlation between success and failure around, how serious the back office is taken. And there's so many other reasons for success and failure too, but you can tell the folks that just don't have it together and they're kind of, doing the taxes an hour before the tax deadline versus those that are, fully prepared. It's a different way of running your business. And so I would just challenge everybody, if you are that CEO or founder listening to this, and I'm kind of pulling out a string a little bit, go find somebody in your business that can delegate this to, and that could be a great way to solve it.
Yeah. Don't let your accounting function be because of luck.
No.
I have seen a couple companies that have said, "Oh, well, we accidentally were profitable," or there's just more money in than out this month. Like it happens all the time, but usually it's to your point earlier, like it's a fire drill. If something goes wrong, all of a sudden it's like people wait to the last minute until something bad is happening to take a look at this. So, maybe when you do have, that blocked hour off, just take a look. Set yourself up for success. And that's super important. It really is a responsibility, like the other pillars of your business. If you just look at it like this is something that other people like to do. Like we just jammed for 45 minutes about accounting, like with smiles, right? Like there's people out there that love to do this type of stuff. So they're out there and they might actually be on your team too. So.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Well, with that, I'm not sure if we had any questions kind of come in from the audience. Austin, are we good there? Or, okay, we've got one. Here we go. Let me pull this up. Logan, great. So knowing that TaxTaker works with customers' existing bookkeeping and accounting solutions, who does TaxTaker refer clients to for outsourced accounting? Great question. We play favorites really based upon the clients' accounting firms that we work with. So because we are by design a shop that plays nicely in the sandbox with all different types of accountants and bookkeepers, because we just do this one line item of tax, we can work with any accountant. So we're always making recommendations sort of first to the folks that our clients know and love. And then, we just know that they've done well by our clients. So we do get bombarded by accountants and bookkeepers saying, refer us business. And we want to refer everyone business. But typically we have a kind of a short list of, not by just numbers. It's not like, we're not this shop that's like, you have to have, 50 clients with us to get a mention. But our clients are communicative with us of what they're liking with their accountants. And there's so many great ones. So many great ones out there. So hit us up if you need a recommendation. Not today, because filing's tomorrow. If you don't have someone, sorry. I'm not going to do that to any of our accounting partners. But on Monday, absolutely down to help with Q4 planning. Q4, we're thinking about our budgets, we're thinking about 2022, and it's such an excellent time to be having this conversation because it gives you a little bit of breathing room to have conversations and interview shops if you're looking. But there are so many, and we'd be happy to refer a bunch. Awesome. And then I think the Brex network too, you guys are aligned with a bunch as well.
Totally. Yeah, we're the same way. So we have a whole host of accounting partners, and we are continuing to grow that. We try to do a lot of the matchmaking I was talking about today. So we can certainly help. And one thing that I'll say for Brex and where we're headed with how we help the accounting firms and the customer is just standardizing more and more on all the solutions of how you spend your money. It's going to make your accountant more accurate and more efficient. They'll love using Brex. So it's also a great place to start if you are looking for a new accounting firm. We certainly can help.
Yeah, to that. And if you're starting out, I mean, it's so great if you do spend the time to look at your own books, kind of just start. But I've personally used Brex's matching tools, and I think they're super user friendly. So you can actually go into your Brex account and start seeing how y'all are matching things, and where your CPA will start categorizing things too. So again, to that kind of data should be transferable and transparent. There's just a lot of folks eager to help make it an easy process so that we're not yelling and screaming on October 15th. Well, awesome, Kurt. Thanks so much. It's always a treat to spend time with you. Really appreciate the wisdom that you've given the founders that are going to be watching this here on out as they gear up for another wild year, 2022, and really excited to continue to partner with your team. Love what y'all are doing.
Likewise. Well, thanks for having us, and would love to do this again. So lots of fun.
Yeah, let's do it. It's a plan. Thanks, everyone.